Hello, everyone. If you could just give us one moment to get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If this is your first time with us, welcome to another episode of Cooking Connected. My name is Jordan. Joining me today is my coworker, Sajwa. Both Sajwa and I work with the Cooking Matters Minnesota program with the University of Minnesota Extension. So normally a Cooking Matters class is a nutrition-based 6-week cooking class that meets once a week for 2 hours in person. Classes feature a chef and a nutrition educator that work together to make a healthy, delicious, and affordable meal together to teach our participants how to make these meals. So today we're going to follow that same format and we're going to make a burrito zucchini boats. We'd like to thank the creator of this recipe, Lauren, with delish.com. Today I will be our nutrition educator and Sajwa will be our chef. So just like every week, we do have a survey for you to take. So if you get a moment after our video, if you could please take this survey. It just kind of helps us continue our work in the community and helps us make our videos a little bit better every time. So if you could take that, we would sure appreciate it. The link is in the live chat as well as the description of our videos. For this survey, you will need a program code, which I have right here. So let's see here. This week's program code is E098988. And again, that's the program code for this week's survey. So if you could take that, we would sure appreciate it. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Chef Sajwa.
All right. Thank you, Jordan, for the introduction there. And before I get started, I'm actually going to want to do a quick shout out. So we have an upcoming Cooking Matters class at Normandale Community College. This is offered for Normandale Community College students. So we are going to have the information for how and where to RSVP for that class in the description box of the video. But I just want to give a shout out for that class. Normandale students, where you at? That class is going to be on Mondays, starting March 15th to April 19th. So every Monday, March 15th to April 19th, from 3 p.m. to 4:30. And again, that's going to be online, virtual, really fun. We're going to be doing some fun recipes. So we hope to see you guys there. Now let's go ahead and hop into today's recipe. We're going to be doing the zucchini burrito boats today. This is a really great recipe. I like it because it's a different way of using zucchini. So that's kind of my favorite thing about this recipe. What's your favorite part about this one, Jordan?
You know, I haven't tried this one before, but it looks like it would be a great way to sneak in some vegetables. Sometimes, you know, we don't get enough veggies in our diet, so I'm always looking for new ways to do that.
Me too, me too. So first things first, as always, you want to make sure that you are washing your hands whenever you're getting ready to work in the kitchen. Just like Jordan's doing there, getting on the back of your hands, in between those fingers, underneath your nails, around your wrist. Those are all important spots to hit. And you do want to wash your hands for 20 seconds. You can sing the ABC song or the Happy Birthday song twice. Next, I just want to point out my mise en place. So you guys already know, that's just our little way of saying having your mess in place. So I got everything I need kind of out and ready to go so that I'm not having to fumble through my cabinets. Today I will be using some ground turkey, so that's going to be a really important food thing, not to be touching everywhere once I open and expose that meat package. And so with that, oh, and then also let me just mention, I wipe the tops of my cans as part of my mise en place. I've rinsed my veggies. Those are also important things that you want to make sure you're doing when you're cooking. Let's get started. My view is adjusted there. The first thing I want to talk about is our zucchini. Again, like I said, I've already rinsed and taken care of that for all of my veggies today. What I want to do with my zucchini is I'm going to just cut off the top here, and I'm going to be using my proper knife handling skills. That means I'm pinching my blade with my index finger and my thumb in the back there, and then I'm wrapping my other fingers around the handle like so, giving me a lot of good control as I'm using my knife. I'm just going to chop off that top, and yes, you could say this for your broth bag. You know, we're big fans of the broth bag here. Next, I'm going to cut my zucchini in half, creating a flat surface. Just going down like that. And that's always a good practice whenever you have anything that's kind of, rolling like that. The next thing we're going to do with this, and you probably can already see a little bit here in my prep bowl, I've done some other zucchinis earlier, but we're going to want to scoop out the insides of our zucchini, and I'm actually going to save that. We are going to use it, but I just want to scoop it out first because we're going to do a little bit of prep with our zucchini before we get started.
Absolutely. So Saja was talking a little bit about broth bags. If you haven't been with us before, we talk about making broth out of vegetable scraps and other scraps in your kitchen. If you don't know how to make a broth bag or how to make broth out of vegetable scraps, check out a video on our YouTube channel to how to make broth out of scraps from your kitchen. So like that top of the zucchini that Saja just cut off is a really great addition to a broth bag. So you just throw those scraps into like a Ziploc baggie and then throw them in the freezer. Once that gets full, you can make broth. And it saves you a little bit of money too.
So the point of this is so we can have a nice hollow shell for our burrito boats today. And this is going to be a really great step, especially if you have kids that you want to get in the kitchen. It's kind of fun, very easy, no knives required. I'm just using a spoon here, kind of carving it out. So I think this would be a great spot to get the kids involved, especially if you're trying something new, like a zucchini, that might make them a little nervous there. All right, so I'm almost done hollowing this guy out and just putting my nice bolt and all that stuff in there. We're going to be using that for part of our filling. So now with my zucchini boats, what you're going to want to do is put them in a casserole dish. Now, of course, I've done a little bit of prep beforehand, so I can be mindful of our time today. You're going to pop them into your casserole dish. You can use a sprinkle of salt and pepper, and then just a drizzle of olive oil or canola oil, whatever vegetable oil you prefer. You're going to pop these in the oven at 350 for about 10 minutes, just to kind of soften them up. So since I've done that with these guys already, I'm going to just work with these moving forward, but I'll be fixing these guys up later. Right. So now that we've taken care of our zucchini, I'm going to go ahead and prep some of my other items. Today we need to use half of an onion, and then I've also got some garlic that we're going to be using today. Now we've gone over cutting an onion quite a few times. It's like one of the most popular ingredients we use with Cooking Connected, but imagine my other half. I'm just going to cut it so I get this half. I will be laying my onion like so it's not rolling around, and I'm just going to chop off that top there. That'll be great for my broth bag later. Then I want to get a nice dice with this onion, so following the natural grooves of the onions, I'm going to just go on down and cut. I'm not going all the way back to that fuzzy part. We want to leave that there to kind of hold our onion together as we go. So just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Onions are typically the base of a lot of recipes. I've said it before, a lot of times when I'm cooking, the first step is to cut an onion. So a great meal prep tip is to just have prepped onions ready. That way, you kind of cut out one step of meal prepping.
Exactly. So I've gone on with my dices. The size, is really according to what's going to be comfortable for you and your family. I think I've done a pretty small dice there. So I went ahead, followed those grooves, and then I went the opposite way and cut, as you guys probably saw. And now I'm just gonna work this other part here. I'm not leaving any piece of this onion unused, because even this fuzzy bottom part, oops, doesn't belong on the floor. It will get rinsed off. It'll get rinsed off and go into my broth bag. All right, so I've got my onion nice and diced like that. Looking beautiful. Chop up these other guys that were additions. And I'm just going to pop that to the side. And I will be probably putting it in this bowl just to create some more space later on. At this point, I do want to work with my garlic here. And we're just going to be doing a nice mince with the garlic. Again, we've done onions and garlic a million times with Cooking Connected. So I'll just show you how I do that. I have my knife on top of my garlic here with the blade facing away from me. And I'm going to use the bottom of my palm here to just push down and crack that garlic. Going to help me peel that skin off. Nice and easy.
And if you do have kiddos in the kitchen helping you, one of our viewers gave us a really awesome tip. So if you're watching today, thank you so much for this tip. Using the bottom of a glass to press down on that garlic instead. That's something your kiddos can do in the kitchen if they're helping. Otherwise, Sajwa has a great tip as well, using another small cutting board to press down. Maybe you're not so comfortable with using the blade of the knife, which is fine. We have other tools we can use to press that garlic.
I love that our viewer gave us that tip. You guys have no idea how much I've grown in my cooking skills from what you guys have shared with us. So we always appreciate our viewers for the tips that they share.
Absolutely. Yes, we have one comment from a viewer, or even the bottom of a can. Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Ooh, wonderful. Because, we already got our cans over there prepped and ready to go. That's actually a really great idea.
Absolutely. And of course, making sure your can is clean before you. That would be a good tip as well.
Yep. So as you guys saw, I did just slice my garlic up into some small slices. And now I'm going through again with that mince. And why don't I do just a quick review? It's been a while. So with my mince, I am just going to use my other hand to kind of give my knife a little bit of leverage as I pivot. And I'm just taking my time and going around like that, gathering my garlic as I go and going like so. I could also pinch the top of my knife and just go up and down if I was more comfortable with that. So either of those work. The smaller you cut your garlic, the more flavor you're going to get out of that. So make sure that you do cut it up nice and small for this recipe. Good mince is also good for hiding vegetables, as Jordan talked about earlier.
Yeah, so if you do have, maybe you're introducing a new vegetable to your kids, if you want to kind of hide it in like maybe a sauce or something, you can mince up some of those vegetables so that way they're still getting those vitamins and minerals that they need, and they're kind of still getting that vegetable, but maybe not having a big chunk of it that might not be as appetizing.
So we do need about a half cup of cut up cherry tomatoes. We need about a half cup of those. I do tend to go a little bit overboard on the tomatoes. I love tomatoes, especially when they're bright, juicy, and red like this. So I might be going a little bit over my half cup limit, but no fear. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of extra veg in any dish that you're doing. I'm always good to be generous with that. And I'm just cutting mine up into kind of like 4 quadrants. So first what I like to do is cutting it in half, and then I'm cutting each half in half again. And that's really helpful. Another thing you can do with this recipe, suppose you didn't have any fresh cherry tomatoes around, you can always use canned. That would work fine with this recipe. Again, just that half cup is what you're gonna want to use for this recipe, so keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Sajwa just reminds us of a really great topic that we like to talk about at Cooking Connected and Cooking Matters, that recipes are really guidelines. So it's really important to, once you've tried them and know what they taste like, you can adjust a recipe to your taste, what you have on hand, what you like. So Sajwa's adding more tomatoes because that's her preference. She is also using a turkey today instead of a beef because it's a more lean meat option. So, we can definitely take all of these recipes and make them our own and make them something that our family is interested in as well.
Final thing I'm going to work with is a little bit of cilantro, and Jordan already said this, but recipes are guidelines. So if you're not into cilantro, you certainly don't have to use it. Also, if you have a dried cilantro option, that works well too. We're going to be using this on top of our burrito boats at the end as part of a garnish. So I am just going to, I'm a big cilantro fan too. So I do go ahead and use the stems of my cilantro. Once I cut it up so fine, you can barely tell. I just gave these a nice rinse earlier when I was doing my mise en place. And I like to fold mine together into a little bundle of joy, like so. And then I'm going to pinch it like this, get it nice and tucked. I'm watching my fingers as I cut. I'm being very careful about that, okay? I'm using my claw on this other hand, and I'm just gonna go down, kind of chop the cilantro, moving my fingers back as I go. Yeah. And now once I get through this entire bundle, I am gonna go back through again and probably do a few more chops. But you see what technique I'm using here, you guys? That mincing. So I'm going back to that. to kind of help me break it up even smaller.
Absolutely. And Sajwa just said that she had already rinsed her her cilantro today. For those of you who don't really work with fresh herbs a lot, I usually use dried. Like she said, you can use dried, but it is important if you're using fresh herbs to rinse them still. The way I like to do that is just, of course, rinsing them as normal, and then I will take a paper towel and just kind of get that moisture off of there. So just remember to always rinse your herbs, especially if they're just coming out of the garden in the summertime. That is the best. So.
Okay, after some fervent mincing, I am done with my cilantro. And that is all of the fresh prep that we're going to be doing. So I'm ready to go with that. The next thing I want to do is just crack open my my canned beans. We're going to be adding that to this recipe. It's really going to add a nice element of protein in there, some more fiber. Always great to get more, the more you can add in there of those good things, the better. So I'm going to crack this guy open and give it a rinse. And then, as you guys probably saw when I held the can up, it is a low sodium option. If you can't find low sodium, or, it's not on sale, whatever the case, you can always still get the regular kind and just give your beans a good rinse there. I'm also opening my corn right now. Again, this is a low sodium option. Same applies, give it a good rinse. Buy whatever's on sale. So let me just give these a drain and a rinse. And we're gonna need a half cup of each.
Absolutely. So yes, Sajwa is using black beans today. I'm sure you could use a different type of bean in this recipe as well. But adding beans, as Sajwa was saying, adds a little bit of fiber and some more protein to this recipe, which is really great. We also do this with our turkey taco recipe, which is actually the very first video we did with Cooking Connected. So go check it out, see how much we've changed over the course of 2020 with our Cooking Connected videos. But with turkey tacos, we also add black beans to the ground turkey. It just kind of extends the all of the meat that we have. So if you ever need to add just a little bit more, adding beans is a really great addition because, like I said, it kind of extends the amount that you have. So if you need to feed more people, maybe add a can of beans so they're still getting that protein with their turkey.
Alrighty, so I have my turkey. I went ahead and popped that in my skillet. I turned the heat on, and we're going to take a moment to brown the turkey. And I want to give Jordan a chance to do a little nutrition education with this good time we have. So I'm going to pass it on to her. But just note, after my turkey gets browned, I will be adding in my onions and my garlic. Following that, my tomatoes, my corn, and my beans. So check in with you guys as I move forward with that.
Perfect. Yep. Interrupt us whenever you're ready. Thank you, Sajwa. So today we're going to talk a little bit about My Plate. So we've talked about My Plate quite a bit over the past year, but we're just going to kind of do a little bit of recap. So this is My Plate. This is actually just kind of like an eating pattern. So it's a healthy eating pattern, and it kind of shows us how we can portion our plate. So you'll see half of our plate is fruits and vegetables, a quarter grains, a little less protein, and then we have a little bit of dairy there at the top as well. So this just shows us what our plates should be looking like. So half of our plates should be fruits and vegetables when we are, maybe grabbing our dinner. Strive to have half of your plate fruits and vegetables. A quarter grains, a quarter proteins, and then a little bit of dairy as well. So this is just an eating pattern that helps you with portions and hopefully is easy to remember as well. But the only thing with My Plate is that, when I'm eating my dinner or lunch or whatever I'm eating doesn't always look like this, having these nice little sections of a grain, a protein, a fruit, and a vegetable. Sometimes they're mixed. So for instance, like our burrito boats today, everything's kind of mixed together. So it definitely doesn't take the form of that beautiful plate that we have with My Plate. So it also can help us understand how to portion these things that are mixed. So let's say we're making a taco, for instance. Our tortilla would be our grain. We also have a meat. So thinking back to my plate, we only need a quarter of our plate to be protein. So we really don't need that much protein on there. Maybe a quarter of our taco should be protein. But we know that half of our plate should be fruits and vegetables. So on our taco, we should probably have more vegetables on there. So maybe we add a little bit of lettuce and some onions and a few other vegetables because half of our plate should be fruits and vegetables. And then a little dairy. Maybe we add our Greek yogurt for a sour cream substitute. And of course, if you think tomatoes are fruits, add that tomato on top for some fruit, or maybe an apple for a side or something like that. So we've talked a lot about My Plate. A lot of times at the end of our videos, we'll do a My Plate recap. So that's kind of what we're talking about, making sure that we have all 5 of those food groups in our meals, and then talking about proportions as well. So as I said, half of our plates should be fruits and vegetables. But when we look at My Plate, the vegetable portion is actually bigger than our fruit portion. So fruits are great, but we also need vegetables, a little bit more vegetables than fruits. Vegetables have all of these awesome vitamins and minerals that we need, and fiber as well. So it's really important to be eating, I like to say, vegetables then fruit. Because vegetables are a really important part of our diet, but sometimes it can be really hard to kind of sneak these vegetables into our diet. So we're going to talk today just a little bit about how we can kind of sneak these vegetables in, and we've kind of talked a little bit about this already with our burrito boats today. So we aren't using, like, I would typically think of a burrito with a tortilla. So today we're not using a grain, we're using a vegetable instead. So in some options that would be replacing that grain with a vegetable would work. So I'm thinking like these burrito boats, or if we make a lasagna, instead of using the noodles, you can actually use like zucchini slices. A lot of times there's like zucchini noodles, and I know I'm picking on zucchini quite a bit. We love zucchini here. But you can make noodles out of a lot of other things. There's also like cauliflower rice. So maybe instead of having rice, you can have some cauliflower instead. And of course, we still do need our grains in our diet, keeping half of our grains whole grains. And we've talked a little bit about that before as well. But some other options that you can use for sneaking in some vegetables into your diet. We talked a little bit about sauces. So you can use grated vegetables in your sauces. So like I like to grate up a carrot and I'll throw it in my spaghetti sauce, and it just kind of melds in there, so you can't really taste it. We just had a comment from our viewer, eggplant slices make great lasagna noodles too. Absolutely, that is a great option. If your kids haven't tried eggplant, that's a really great opportunity to introduce them. I used to make eggplant parmesan quite a bit. So there's a lot of different options out there, and it's kind of fun to explore. Last week on Cooking Connected, we also made a vegetable nugget instead of a chicken nugget. So having those different options as well to sneak in those vegetables. You can also add more vegetables on your pizza. So when you're having pizza on Friday night or Saturday night, maybe adding vegetables on there instead of the meat and the cheese and extra cheese. You can also add vegetables to your taco meat. So Sajwa looks like she's just adding our onions now. So, that's a really great opportunity to add some other vegetables in. We use some grated sweet potatoes in our turkey tacos. So that would be great, a great option to use. I also like to add vegetables to my smoothies. So a lot of times in the morning, I have trouble getting vegetables in my diet for my breakfast meal. So adding vegetables into my smoothie really helps to kind of have vegetables at each meal. So usually when we are creating a smoothie, we have all that fruit that just kind of covers up the taste of our vegetables. So add some veggies in there. And if there's any more tips that you guys have for us on ways that you sneak vegetables into your diet, let us know. Just drop us a comment in the live chat. We'd love to hear those tips and tricks that you guys are using to sneak more vegetables into your diet. I just told you a few today. So how are we looking over there, Sajwa?
You're looking good. So I did go ahead and add in our garlic and our onions into our meat mixture over there. It's just cooking up. I'm going to be waiting for my onions to get a little bit translucent there. And then, speaking of sneaking in vegetables, you remember those zucchini guts that we scooped out? That's going to be going in there with that mixture. So it's not a waste. We're going to be sneaking that in there. And then I will be adding my tomatoes following that. So I just want to give my onions a moment to get a little bit more translucent, and then I'll add my zucchini and my tomatoes. But we're rocking and rolling over here.
Awesome. So we are using all the parts of that zucchini. We're not really wasting anything, which is really awesome for this recipe. So whenever we buy vegetables, you notice Sajwa cut all of her onion today. If we ever use a bell pepper, we cut all of it. Just remember that you're spending money on those vegetables, and sometimes fresh can be a little bit more expensive. So we like to use as much of those vegetables as we can. So this is a really great option for that as well. So if we have a little bit more time, we can talk a little bit about proteins. So today we have two different proteins in our burrito bowls. We are using our turkey, of course, and also our black beans that we have in there. Of course, you can use a different type of bean, like a kidney bean or something like that. Maybe even a lentil would be an option for you as well. But the recipe actually calls for beef. So a lot of times we try to, we don't really avoid beef, but we stay away from it because it has a little bit of what we call, a little bit more of what we call saturated fat, and it's not quite as lean of an option as turkey. But a lot of times, I mean, I still really enjoy eating beef every once in a while. So here's a few tips for you on how to spot maybe a lean beef. So if we're looking at like ground beef that we're using for our turkey, looking for like a 93.7. So there's these percentages on the front of the package. A lot of times it'll say like 75-25, 80-20, or 93.7. And that is the proportion of like the fat that's in there. So with the 93.7, it's 7% fat. So you're getting a lot of meat product with that. A lot of times it is more expensive, but do keep in mind, looks like Sajwa was adding some corn, and then she added her tomatoes as well as her black beans. Just a little update on our recipe there. Thanks. So sorry about that. So we were just talking a little bit about this 93.7. It is a little bit more expensive a lot of times, but you are getting more product with that. So keep that in mind. But a lot of times like the 80-20 will be on sale. I say absolutely go for that sale. One thing you can do, especially if you're browning off this beef, there's going to be a lot of fat that renders off of that. So there's a lot of moisture in your pan. And that's actually the fat from the beef coming out of the beef when you're cooking it. So you can actually remove that. You can use a strainer and just strain your beef, and you can actually rinse it with warm water. So rinsing that off real quick, you don't really lose much flavor, especially when we're making things like tacos. You're already using a lot of seasonings in there. So you can actually, which speaking of seasonings, I'm going to stop so Sajwa can tell us about the seasonings she's going to add.
Thanks, Jordan. So this is the best for you. So I'm getting ready to add my seasoning in. Jordan was keeping us pretty up to date. I appreciate that. We have our zucchini guts in there. That sounds gross, but it's tasty. We've got our tomatoes in there. We've got our half cup of corn, our half cup of black beans. We've got our garlic, and we've got our onion in there. And now I'm going to add my seasonings. I have a bit of chili powder. I believe it was a half teaspoon of that, a half teaspoon of paprika, a half teaspoon of cumin, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and cayenne. I added a little cayenne to this recipe. I like things spicy. If you don't, feel free to omit that. And then I also have a 1/4 teaspoon of my black pepper in there. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in. And we're going to just let that cook up. But pretty much this is cooked, and I'm getting ready to assemble my zucchini boats. So Jordan, you still have a couple of moments. You can definitely finish up there.
Absolutely. So we can save the rest of our talk about meat after we are assembling our zucchini boats. But just to finish up our thoughts on this, of course you can rinse that beef. You're not going to lose a lot of flavor because of the spices. Some other things to look out for, maybe you're not looking for a ground option with your beef, looking for leaner options of beef cuts. So like sirloins are a little bit more lean, but when you're looking at the meat, you can also see marbling. So a lot of times there's like these white marbling is what it's called in the meat, and that's actually fat. So less marbling means less fat. So just some things to keep in mind when you're eating your beef. Of course, beef is a fine option. We just limit it because it does have a little bit more saturated fat. Our turkey here just is a leaner option. Some other lean options are fish, turkey, let's see, chicken, things like that. They're just leaner options, have a little bit less saturated fat. And so we just kind of gravitate towards those a little bit more here, especially at Cooking Connected. All right, so it looks like Sajwa is just getting ready to assemble.
Yes, I am. It smells wonderful in here. I just want to note that, you guys. I added my seasonings, going to give me a lot of wonderful flavor with this recipe. And now I'm just going to assemble my zucchini bowl. So what that looks like is I'm going to take a scoop of my mixture with all these good veggies, and I'm going to just pop it in there to the best of my ability. Try to keep it nice and tidy. So
and so for our toppings for this Sajwa is our a little bit of cheese and then our cilantro. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. We're going to be using a little bit of cheese. I'll just be sprinkling that on top, and then some cilantro. And then the final step for this recipe is you are going to want to pop it in the oven for about 15 minutes after we get our toppings on there. Make sure I spread that out nice. Let me add my cheese today. That'll be our dairy for our My Plate recap. Put that on top. And then, of course, if you like, you could definitely do like some salsa on the side, whatever you like to kind of make your burrito. If you're a sour cream fan, we love to recommend using a low-fat, plain yogurt. You don't want to make the mistake of vanilla or anything with this kind of recipe. So low-fat, plain yogurt will do you just fine. So I got my cheese on there, and now why don't I sprinkle on some cilantro? Add that. Pop it in the oven for 15 minutes, and that would be our recipe.
Beautiful. Could you show us in the chef's view?
Yes, of course. I will give you guys a better look. Perhaps.
That is a beautiful recipe. It looks so good. Yum.
You see that? I will be posting a picture, as we always do with these recipes. Oh, this is a better. I'll post a picture on Facebook once it's done, and the cheese will just be all nice and melted and gooey, you know, the way we like it. And that is our zucchini burrito oats.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sajwa, for that cooking demonstration for us. That is a beautiful recipe. So before we get done, let's do a My Plate recap. So thinking about our My Plate, for our vegetable, of course, we have zucchini, we have onions, we have a little bit of cilantro on there. We have some tomatoes, which we can count as a fruit. We also have protein, which is our beans, and our turkey today. And then dairy is going to be our cheese, or if you add sour cream. So the only thing that we're missing right now is going to be our grains. So we don't have any grains in here, so maybe you want to have a side of something, some rice or something like that. That might work well for this recipe as well. So that's our My Plate recap for the day. Just another shout out to Normandale. When would those classes be starting again?
Oh, yes. Yep. So we have our next class coming up at Normandale Community College. It's going to be virtual via Zoom, so you don't have to show up in person, you guys. Those classes are going to be on Mondays from March 15th to April 19th from 3 to 4:30 p.m. We'll put the information for who to get in contact with, how to RSVP for class in the description box of this video. But please, Normandale students, come one, come all. We'll be doing a lot of fun recipes like this in our class.
Absolutely. So if you're a Normandale student, please contact us or look for contact information to sign up for those classes. So And of course, as always, please do not forget to take our survey. We have that in the description box. It is in the live chat as well, but in the description box of our video is the link for our survey. And one more time, here is our program code, which is E098988. And that is our zucchini burrito boat. So thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's Cooking Connected. We hope to see you again next Thursday at 2 p.m. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a great